How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massive Beer Reviews back for new brewery time. Kind of pumped for this one. A form of human robot brewing. Yes, this is their Czech 10 Degrees. This is their Czech-Style pale lager, proudly made in Philadelphia, PA. 4.2% alcohol by volume. Done and done. Chomping at the bit to try these guys. Heard some good things. And I went on like a little journey throughout PA this past weekend. Not to Philly, not to Human Robot, but I went to Bond Brewing, and my boy Kev there was speaking highly of these guys. And one of these cans accidentally fell into my bag before I left. Who would have thunk it? Accidents are kooky some way that times. Sometimes. Those times? That times? Doesn't even make sense. Label-wise. Love it. What I said to Kev was, it reminds me of almost like a sign you would see at like a, like an old, like I'm talking like 40s, 50 years old, like kind of like a members only club kind of sign, like a Legion or something like that. I don't know, but I dig on it. You're talking about a Czech lager, probably a little bit darker. I mean, they can get to this color. I'm not saying this is off, but it just comes off a little bit darker than what I typically expect from a base, quote-unquote, kind of Czech lager. In that it just comes off a little bit more straw-like. What do you want? That's what I see. So, I'm not going to poop on it. Fruit flies can be damned. And got a nice white hat on it. It looks all the part of a lager. Getting a little bit darker. Vienna lager, maybe? Let's just try again. Nose. I mean, it's strictly malt driven. I'm really not getting, outside of maybe a soft, I get that a lot in Pilsners and Kolsch's, like a soft melon characteristic, almost like a rindy meloniness, but it's very, very soft. I get a soft melon characteristic, very, very gentle. That's probably it when it comes to what I perceive as hops. It's mostly malt driven. This crackery leaning into a little bit more maltier than a typical kind of Pilsnerly malt, but nothing overly aggressive. Super light, super fluffy, super crisp, super clean, super delicate. Let's put it that way. So even if it does come off a little bit darker than what I typically kind of expect from like a Czech Pils, it smells the part. Minus maybe a little bit of bittering. But let's dive in. Cheers. I mean, that's actually spot on. Oddly enough, a little bit darker, like I said, than I typically expect. A little bit less on the bittering on the nose than I typically expect. But the sweetness, the density of the beer, the heftiness of the beer, the lack of the lightness of the beer, and that nice little zip of bitterness is kind of Czech Pilsner through and through. It doesn't have any kind of overt, kind of funky, kind of like lager yeasty kind of vibes to it. You know it's a lager. Let's put it that way. Not just from a cleanliness standpoint, but also that little bit of lagery yeastiness, but there's nothing kind of overtly aggressive in the way the lager kind of comes off yeastiness. And like I said, for me, what I would typically describe as a kind of aggressive lager yeast comes off a little bit funky. Similar to Saison, but just a little bit different in that it's distinctive. Maybe if I knew how to describe it better, that would be great. But the way this malt comes off a little bit skosh beefier than Uber Classic, but well within style guidelines, even though they can be damned. And the bitterness on this is pretty much rock solid on point. A nice bittering, a bit of herbalness, a little bit of spiciness to it. Nothing too aggressive with that little melon characteristic I was talking about earlier. Done and done. Yeah. Is it the most cleanest? Well, it is clean. Is it the most lightest crispy boy of Czech lagers? No. Is it a crispy boy? Yes. It's a little husky crispy boy, if we're going to name it anything. But it's a tasty beer, and it's a really well-made lager. There's nothing negative in it. It just has its own kind of personality to it, which is pretty much what I want from all breweries. You give this to me, say this is a Czech lager, I drink it, go, yes it is, done. I'm not going to sit here and qualm. Again, I'm not the style guideline guy. I am not the BJCP nerd guy. But I think it's worth mentioning those subtle distinctions when they do come up, especially when it's, a Czech Pilsner. They're not calling it a Pilsner. You know what I mean? They're calling it a Czech Pilsner, so they're trying to get exact with this. So I think it's worthy of bringing those things up. But it's well within its means of being that, and a nice kind of American interpretation of a Czech Pilsner. A little bit more maltier, It's maybe a skosh hair heftier, but again, it's still a nice crispy beer and very drinkable. And that kind of pop of bittering is pretty much the most spot on from what I can tell when it comes to like classic Uber kind of Czech Pilsners, and just ends up being a super drinkable beer. I've heard a lot about Human Robot, especially from the lager game side of things, whether it be from other brewers, other beer guys, and girls, and they and them and everything in between. And I was looking forward, almost like you don't want to go into these beers with a preconceived notion, but it's kind of hard to when people kind of talk up a brewery. So, I got this, and a couple people, not just myself, but a couple of people knew I got this, and they were like, ooh, wonder what you think about that. And what I think about it is effing tasty. I think that would be the technical term for it. But yeah, is it one of the better Czech Pilsners I've had as of late? Yes. Is it Mount Rushmore status? I like mine to skew traditional. Is it one of the more slightly Americanized? Because it's not super bastardized Americanized like some people are like, here's our Pilsner, and it's just a hazy pale ale that just happened to have lager yeast and cold conditioning. Like, it's just not even close to being a Pilsner. This is like traditional, but with a dollop of American on it, and I dig that. It's one of the better ones of those for sure. Value availability, no idea. Like I said, my buddy Kev gave it to me. People out there in the old Philadelphias, let me know what's what when it comes to this beer. Hopefully it's decently priced, and leave you with, if you like what we like this. If you like Pilsner, if you like drinking beers, chugging beers, if you like good beer, man, you'll like this. There you go. Review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. If you've had this beer, let me know if you've enjoyed it, or you haven't, or somewhere, wherever, down there. You can talk about it. Massive Beers, if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massif, if you want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of Human Robot and or some Pilsner right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.